The massive alien warship loomed over Earth like a dark cloud. Captain James Walker stood at the command center of humanity's last space station, his weathered face reflecting the glow of emergency lights. The aliens, who called themselves the Dominion, had trapped Earth inside their energy field called Cruel Space, a barrier that made most human technology useless. But James had a secret. For 3 years, he and a small team of scientists had been studying the Cruel Space barrier. They discovered something the Dominion didn't know: humans could adapt to it. While alien technology relied on complex energy fields that the barrier disrupted, human bodies were naturally learning to work with it. "Sir, they're sending another message," said Tom, the young communications officer. His hands shook slightly as he pulled up the alien transmission on the main screen. The Dominion commander appeared, his metallic skin gleaming under harsh lights. "Humans, your resistance is pointless. Your primitive technology cannot function in cruel space. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. You have 1 Earth day to decide." James looked around at his crew, 50 brave men and women who had volunteered to stay on the station while others evacuated. They weren't soldiers. They were scientists, engineers, and ordinary people who refused to give up. "What they don't understand," James said quietly, "is that we don't need fancy technology to fight back. We have something better: human adaptability." In the station's lab, Dr. Maria Thompson was finishing her latest tests. The results made her smile. "Captain," she called over the intercom, "you need to see this. The adaptation rate is increasing. Our people in the testing chamber can now manipulate cruel space energy directly." James hurried to the lab. Through the observation window, he watched as volunteers moved objects without touching them, created energy shields with their hands, and even teleported short distances. It wasn't technology, it was human beings evolving to use the very force meant to trap them. "How many people can do this now?" James asked. "Based on our latest tests, about 30% of humans have the potential," Maria answered. "And the number is growing. The more time we spend exposed to cruel space, the stronger we become." But they needed more time. The Dominion wouldn't wait forever, and Earth's ground defenses were failing. James had to make a decision that would change everything. He gathered his crew in the main hall. "Listen carefully," he began. "The Dominion thinks they've trapped us, made us helpless. But they've actually given us the greatest gift possible, the chance to evolve. We're going to show them exactly what humans can do when backed into a corner." The plan was risky. They would appear to surrender, letting the Dominion think they had won. But while the aliens were busy accepting Earth's fake submission, James and his enhanced crew would infiltrate their command ship. Not with weapons or technology, but with their newly developed abilities. As the day drew to a close, James sent their response to the Dominion: "We wish to discuss terms of surrender." The alien commander's smug reply came quickly: "A wise choice, humans. Prepare for boarding." Little did they know, it wasn't Earth's surrender they should be preparing for. As James watched the massive Dominion ship approach the station, he felt the cruel space energy flowing through him. Humanity was about to show the galaxy why you should never corner a species that thrives on overcoming impossible odds. The first part of their plan was in motion. Soon, the Dominion would learn that their greatest weapon had become humanity's greatest strength. And this was just the beginning. The crew took their positions, each one knowing their role in what would become the greatest turning point in human history. As James looked at the determination in their eyes, he knew one thing for certain: the aliens had no idea what they were about to face. The story of humanity's rise from trapped prey to powerful force was about to begin, and it would shake the foundations of the galaxy itself. The Dominion boarding ships approached the space station like giant metal wasps. Captain James Walker watched through the main window as they drew closer, his heart steady despite the danger. Around him, his crew maintained their act of defeat, but beneath their worried expressions lay hidden strength. "They're sending boarding parties to 3 different airlocks," Tom reported from his console. "Estimated 50 soldiers per group." Dr. Maria Thompson stepped forward, her tablet showing live readings of the crew's energy levels. "Everyone's adaptation rates are holding steady." "We're ready, Captain." James nodded. "Remember the plan. Let them think they're in control until we reach their command ship. No one shows their abilities unless absolutely necessary." The first sounds of docking clamps echoed through the station's hull. Heavy footsteps followed as armored Dominion soldiers marched through the airlocks. Their metal boots clanked against the floor, and their energy weapons hummed with power they thought humans couldn't match. The station's main doors slid open. A tall Dominion commander strode in, his silver armor gleaming under the lights. 2 rows of soldiers flanked him, weapons aimed at the human crew. "I am Commander Rex of the Dominion forces," he announced, his translator making his voice sound artificial. "Your surrender is accepted. You will be transported to our command ship for processing." James stepped forward, playing his role perfectly. "We understand. My crew will cooperate fully." Rex's metallic face showed no emotion, but satisfaction rang in his voice. The mighty humans, finally learning their place. How disappointing. We expected more resistance. As the Dominion soldiers began herding the crew toward their transport ships, James caught glimpses of his people carefully maintaining their act. Mike from engineering kept his head down, hiding the small smile that would have given away their plan. Lisa from medical pretended to stumble, all while gathering energy for what was to come. The transport ship's interior was cold and cramped, designed to intimidate prisoners. The Dominion soldiers strapped them into uncomfortable metal seats, their weapons never wavering. "Your species had such potential," Rex said as they departed the station. "But you relied too much on your primitive technology. In cruel space, you are nothing." James met the commander's gaze. "Maybe you're right. Or maybe you don't understand humans as well as you think." The massive Dominion command ship grew larger in the viewport. It was a city in space, housing thousands of soldiers and enough firepower to destroy continents. Its dark metal surface absorbed light, making it look like a piece of night come alive. As they docked, James sent a silent signal to his crew by tapping his fingers in a specific pattern. Everyone was in position. The Dominion had brought humanity's greatest weapons right into their heart, the humans themselves. The processing area was massive, with high ceilings and rows of containment cells. Rex directed his soldiers to begin separating the crew for interrogation. "Captain Walker will come with me," Rex announced. "The rest will be questioned by our intelligence division." This was exactly what they had hoped for. Splitting up would make their plan easier to execute. As James was led away, he caught one last glimpse of his crew being divided into smaller groups. Dr. Maria gave him a slight nod, the signal that everyone's energy levels were still strong. Rex took James to a private interrogation room high in the command ship. Through the room's window, Earth was visible, still wrapped in the shimming barrier of cruel space. "Now, Captain," Rex said, dismissing his guards with a wave, "you will tell me everything about Earth's remaining defenses." James stood calmly, feeling the energy of cruel space flowing through him. "Actually, Commander, I have a different story to tell you. It's about how humans adapt." Before Rex could respond, James released a small portion of his stored energy. The commander's weapon flew from its holster, disassembling itself in mid-air. What is this?" Rex stepped back, his metallic face showing emotion for the first time, fear. "This is what happens when you trap humans in an environment that forces them to evolve," James said, his eyes now glowing slightly with contained power. "We don't just survive, we learn to thrive." Throughout the massive ship, similar scenes were playing out. The Dominion soldiers found their prisoners suddenly in control. Dr. Maria and her team took over the ship's science labs. Mike from engineering and his group secured the engine room. Lisa and the medical team captured the ship's hospital wing. The Dominion's greatest weapon had become their greatest weakness. They had never imagined that humans could adapt to use cruel space energy naturally, without technology. James approached the stunned commander. Now, let's discuss new terms. This time, we'll talk about the Dominion surrender. Rex's response was cut off by ship-wide alarms. On every deck, Dominion soldiers were discovering that their helpless prisoners were anything but defeated. The tables had turned, and the real battle for Earth's freedom was about to begin. The Dominion was about to learn why the galaxy would come to fear the phrase, "Never underestimate human adaptation." Alarms blared through the Dominion command ship as chaos spread from deck to deck. Captain James Walker stood in the interrogation room, watching Commander Rex back away from him in disbelief. The metal walls hummed with energy as more humans began using their newfound powers. "Impossible," Rex whispered, his metallic fingers scraping against the wall behind him. "Our scientists said humans couldn't survive direct contact with cruel space energy." James lifted his hand, creating a swirling ball of blue energy. "Your scientists were wrong. Humans don't just survive, we adapt. We grow stronger." Through the ship's communication system, reports flooded in. In the engine room, Mike and his team had completely taken control. The engineers who once fixed simple machines were now directing cruel space energy through the ship's power systems, making the massive engines respond to their commands. "Engineering deck secured," Mike's voice crackled over the intercom. "You won't believe this, Captain. We can read the ship's systems like they're part of us. It's like the energy wants to work with us." In the medical bay, Lisa and her team had made another breakthrough. She rushed to report their findings. "Captain, we've discovered something amazing. The Dominion's medical records show they've been studying cruel space for centuries, but they never managed to merge with it like we have. They had to build machines to control it." James turned to Rex, understanding dawning on his face. "That's it, isn't it? Your entire empire is built on controlling cruel space through technology. You never imagined a species could adapt to use it naturally." Rex's silence was all the confirmation they needed. Dr. Maria's voice joined the conversation from the science labs. "Captain, I'm looking at their research data now. The Dominion found cruel space thousands of years ago. They built their empire by trapping other species inside it, waiting for them to surrender when their technology failed. We're the first ones who adapted instead." The ship shuddered as more humans discovered their powers. Some could now teleport short distances, while others learned to create shields or move objects with their minds. Each person's abilities manifested differently, but they all drew from the same energy that was meant to imprison them. James approached the ship's main window, Earth still visible in the distance. Other Dominion ships were approaching, alerted by the command ship's alarms. "How many ships in their fleet, Commander?" Rex straightened his metallic spine, trying to maintain his dignity. "Enough to crush your pathetic rebellion. This ship is just one of thousands. Even with your adaptation, you cannot stand against the entire Dominion fleet." A smile crossed James's face. "We don't need to fight your entire fleet. We just need to show them what we can do." He pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All teams, initiate Phase 2. Throughout the ship, the human crew began broadcasting their discoveries. They transmitted the truth about human adaptation to every ship in range. They showed video proof of humans using cruel space energy naturally, without technology. Most importantly, they broadcast the Dominion's own research data, proving that they had been trapping and enslaving species across the galaxy. "Your empire is built on fear," James told Rex. "Fear of being trapped in cruel space. But what happens when species learn they can adapt like we did? What happens when they realize they don't need to fear you anymore?" The answer came sooner than expected. On nearby Dominion ships, crews from other captured species began to question their captors. The broadcast sparked hope in those who had lived under Dominion control for generations. Dr. Maria's excited voice came over the intercom again. "Captain, you need to see this. The adaptation process, it's not just limited to humans. The Dominion's own research shows that any biological species can potentially adapt to cruel space. They've been stopping the process by keeping people dependent on technology." This news hit Rex like a physical blow. He slumped against the wall, his metallic features twisted in what looked like despair. "You don't understand what you're doing. The Dominion maintains order in the galaxy. Without our control of cruel space." "Without your control," James interrupted, "species will be free to develop their own relationship with this energy. They'll adapt in their own ways, grow in their own directions." The ship sensors detected more activity. Some of the nearest Dominion ships had stopped advancing. Their crews, inspired by the broadcasts, had begun to question centuries of control. James turned to his crew over the intercom. "Keep broadcasting. Show everyone what's possible. Today, we're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for every species trapped by the Dominion's lies." As if in response, the cruel space energy around them pulsed with new intensity. Humans throughout the ship felt their powers growing stronger, more controlled. They weren't just adapting anymore, they were mastering this new force. The revolution had begun, sparked by humanity's refusal to submit. The Dominion's greatest weapon had become a tool of liberation, and the galaxy would never be the same. The next few hours aboard the Dominion command ship turned into a blur of activity. Captain James Walker coordinated his crew from the main bridge, which they had secured after taking control. The massive view screens showed dozens of Dominion ships in the distance, some still loyal to their empire, others now in open rebellion. "Status report," James called out to his team leaders. Dr. Maria's face appeared on one screen from the science labs. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "Captain, we've made contact with 3 other species on nearby ships. They're beginning to show signs of adaptation, just like we predicted. The bright ones from Sector 7 can already create light sources from cruel space energy." "The Empire lied to us all," said a tall, blue-skinned alien who had joined their cause. He was Bill, a former slave from a species called the Watchers. "For generations, they told us only their technology could control cruel space. They made us dependent on them." Tom, working at the communication station, suddenly straightened in his chair. "Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Defense Command. They've seen our broadcasts and they're reporting similar adaptations happening all over Earth." The main screen switched to show scenes from Earth. Humans who had been exposed to cruel space were developing abilities. Children were the fastest to adapt, their young minds easily accepting the new powers. In cities across the planet, people were learning to use the energy that was meant to trap them. Commander Rex, now under guard in a holding cell, watched these developments with a mixture of fear and fascination. "You don't realize what you've done," he said to James during an interrogation. "The Dominion maintained balance. Without our control. Without your control," James cut in, "species will finally be free to reach their full potential. Your balance was just another word for oppression." A new alert sounded through the ship. Lisa rushed onto the bridge from the medical bay, her tablet displaying urgent readings. "Captain, you need to see this. The cruel space barrier around Earth, it's changing." Everyone turned to the main window. The shimmering field that had trapped Earth was indeed different. Instead of the oppressive purple glow of Dominion control, it now pulsed with multiple colors, responding to the collective energy of millions of adapting humans. "It's not just a barrier anymore," Dr. Maria explained, studying the readings. "It's becoming a network, connecting everyone who can use its energy. The more people adapt, the stronger the network grows." Mike's voice crackled over the intercom from engineering. We're seeing the same thing in the ship's systems. The energy responds to us now like it's alive. It wants to help us. But victory wouldn't come easily. The Dominion had ruled for thousands of years, and many of their ships were still loyal. Red alerts flashed as several enemy vessels moved into attack position. "They're powering up their main weapons," Tom reported. 5 ships, maybe more coming from the outer system. James stood at the command center, feeling the cruel space energy flowing through him and his crew. They still think they can win with technology alone. Show them what adapted beings can really do. The human crew sprang into action. Working together, they created a massive energy shield around their captured command ship. When the Dominion vessels fired, their energy weapons were absorbed into the shield, making it stronger. "Impossible!" Rex exclaimed from his cell. "Those were our strongest weapons." "The problem with relying on technology," James said, "is that you forget how to innovate. Humans? We never stop finding new ways to solve problems." As if to prove his point, the crew discovered they could link their abilities together. Mike's engineering team found ways to redirect enemy fire back at the attacking ships. Lisa's medical group learned to heal injuries using pure cruel space energy. Dr. Maria's scientists discovered how to communicate instantly across vast distances by pulsing the energy in specific patterns. But the most surprising development came from Earth. The Dominion sensors detected massive energy movements as millions of humans began working together instinctively. The barrier that once trapped them was becoming a tool, a weapon, and a shield all at once. "They're calling it the human wave," Tom reported, reading messages from Earth. "Every human who adapts joins their energy to the whole. It's like an ocean of power, and it's growing stronger by the minute." James watched as the combined energy of humanity reached out from Earth, touching other worlds trapped in cruel space. Wherever it reached, imprisoned species began to wake up, their own adaptation processes accelerating. "I understand now," Rex said quietly from his cell. "This is why the founders of the Dominion chose to use technology instead of natural adaptation. They feared this kind of unity. They feared losing control." The battle was far from over. Most of the Dominion fleet was still loyal to their empire, and they would fight hard to maintain their power. But for the first time in thousands of years, the species they had oppressed could see hope. "Send a message to all ships," James commanded. "Tell them the truth about adaptation. Show them what's happening on Earth. Let them see that they don't need the Dominion's technology to survive in cruel space." As the message spread, more ships began to turn. The revolution that started with a single human space station was becoming a galaxy-wide movement for freedom. As they drove to the old farm, Rose couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. She was about to face dangerous alien warriors with nothing but rescue animals, garden herbs, and the element of surprise. Sometimes the best defense wasn't advanced technology or powerful weapons, it was simply being so normal that no one would ever suspect you were hiding something extraordinary. Little did the hunters know, they were about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating both humans and their four-legged friends, whether those friends were from Earth or the stars. The morning sun shone brightly over the old Miller farm as Rose set up her fake adoption event. Betty from the animal shelter had arrived with 20 dogs and 15 cats, all excitedly exploring the open field. Star and Ray blended in perfectly with the other animals, just 2 more hopeful pets waiting for homes. Rose had barely finished setting up her folding tables and "Adopt your forever friend today" banner when she felt it, a deep vibration in the air. Star and Ray's ears perked up at the same time, and all the other animals went quiet. "They're here," Rose whispered, straightening her name tag and grabbing her clipboard. "Everyone stay calm and remember the plan." The hunter's ship was nothing like the movies. Instead of a huge flying saucer, it looked more like a large, dark triangle. It landed silently at the far end of the field, whirring sounds coming from its engines as they powered down. Rose pretended to be checking something on her clipboard as 5 tall figures emerged from the ship. The hunters wore sleek armor that made them look like modern knights, their helmets completely hiding their faces. They carried what looked like advanced scanning devices. "Oh, welcome," Rose called out cheerfully, walking toward them with a bright smile. "Are you here for the adoption event? We have so many lovely pets looking for homes." The Dominion's response to the growing rebellion came swift and harsh. 3 days after humans took control of the command ship, massive reinforcements arrived from the Empire's core worlds. Hundreds of warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their weapons already charged. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of their captured ship, watching the new threat approach. "They're not here just to retake Earth," he said, studying the enemy fleet's formation. "They want to stop this rebellion before it spreads further." Dr. Maria rushed onto the bridge, her tablet displaying urgent data. "Captain, these aren't regular Dominion ships. They're using some kind of enhanced cruel space technology we haven't seen before." The enemy fleet's commander broadcast his message across all channels. His voice was cold and mechanical, even for a Dominion leader. "This is High Admiral Maxis of the Imperial First Fleet. Your rebellion ends today. Surrender now, or we will demonstrate the true power of the Dominion." Tom, monitoring communications, looked up from his station. "We're getting reports from the liberated ships. The adaptation process is spreading, but they need more time. They're not ready for this kind of fight." James felt the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. They had freed dozens of ships and helped countless beings start their adaptation process, but against a full Imperial fleet? The odds looked grim. "Sir," Lisa called from her medical station, "I'm detecting strange energy readings from the Imperial ships. They're harvesting cruel space energy on a massive scale." The first attack came without warning. The Imperial ships fired weapons unlike anything they'd seen before. Beams of concentrated cruel space energy struck 2 of their allied vessels, draining them of power and leaving them dead in space. "They've weaponized it," Dr. Maria said in horror. "They've found a way to drain and store cruel space energy using their technology. They're not just fighting us, they're trying to stop the adaptation process itself." Emergency calls flooded in from the damaged ships. The crews aboard them reported feeling weak, their newly developed abilities fading. The Dominion had found a way to not just block adaptation, but reverse it. "All ships, fall back to Earth," James ordered. "We need to regroup and protect the planet." But retreat wouldn't be easy. The Imperial fleet split into 3 groups, moving to surround them. High Admiral Maxis's voice came through again. "You thought you could challenge the natural order? The Dominion has ruled cruel space for 10,000 years. We will not be overthrown by primitive beings who barely understand what they're dealing with." Just when the situation seemed darkest, help came from an unexpected source. Commander Rex, still their prisoner but now more of an advisor, spoke up. "Captain Walker, there might be a way. The Empire's energy-draining technology has a weakness." James turned to the former enemy commander. "What weakness?" "It can only drain energy that's being actively used," Rex explained. "If you could find a way to shield your energy, to hide it somehow." Dr. Maria's eyes lit up with understanding. "Like Earth's oceans. Water doesn't just hold energy, it conceals it. Captain, remember how we called the human adaptation wave an ocean? What if we could actually make it behave like one?" The plan formed quickly. James contacted Earth Defense Command, explaining what they needed. All around the planet, millions of adapted humans began changing how they used their powers. Instead of projecting energy outward, they pulled it inward, creating layers of hidden power. The Imperial fleet pressed their attack, confident in their superior technology. Their energy-draining weapons lashed out again and again, but now they found less and less power to steal. Status report. Maxis demanded from his flagship. Why aren't the dampening beams working at full efficiency? James allowed himself a small smile. You know what happens when you try to drain an ocean, Admiral? The water just keeps coming back. Humans didn't just adapt to cruel space, we learned to live with it, to work with it. It's part of us now. As if responding to his words, the energy field around Earth began to change again. The hidden power that humans had been gathering burst forth all at once. But this time, it wasn't wild or uncontrolled. It moved like a tidal wave, precise and unstoppable. All adapted crews, James broadcast to their allied ships, ride the wave. Don't fight the energy, flow with it. The liberated ships caught the wave of power, their crews working in perfect harmony with the energy. The Imperial fleet's draining weapons couldn't lock onto the fluid, ever-moving force. Impossible. Maxis raged as his first ships began to fall back. No species can control cruel space this way. It defies all our research. That's your problem, James replied. You tried to control it. We learned to work with it. The battle turned. While the Imperial fleet's technology struggled to adapt to this new form of energy use, the liberated ships pressed their advantage. More Dominion crews, seeing the power of true adaptation, began to question their loyalty to the Empire. The human wave, as it came to be known, spread through space like a ripple in a cosmic pond. Where it touched, it awakened the potential for adaptation in every species it encountered. But even as they celebrated this victory, James knew the war was far from over. The Dominion still ruled most of the galaxy, and they would not give up their power easily. The real battle for freedom was just beginning. The victory over High Admiral Maxis's fleet changed everything. As news spread through Dominion space, more ships and worlds began to rebel. But the Empire had one final card to play, one that could end the adaptation process forever. Captain James Walker and his crew gathered in the command ship strategy room, studying a holographic map of Dominion space. Former Commander Rex pointed to a bright spot at the galaxy's center. This is the Dominion's capital world, Prima, Rex explained. It's where they first discovered cruel space technology. And it's where they keep the source. Dr. Maria looked up from her readings. The source? A device of immense power, Rex continued. It's what allows the Dominion to maintain cruel space barriers across the galaxy. But it's more than that, it's their fail-safe. If activated fully, it could permanently lock every species' ability to adapt. The room fell silent as they understood the threat. Everything they had fought for could be erased with the flip of a switch. Tom's voice came urgently over the intercom. Captain, emergency transmission from our scout ships. The Dominion is moving their entire home fleet to Prima. They're going to activate the source. James stood up, decision made. Then we have no choice. We need to reach Prima before they can use it. But getting to the heart of the Empire wouldn't be easy. The Dominion had concentrated their remaining forces around their capital, creating the largest fleet ever seen in the galaxy's history. We can't fight through that, Lisa said, studying the enemy numbers. Even with our adaptation abilities, there are too many of them. Then we won't fight through, James replied. We'll go under. He explained his plan. Using the ocean-like properties of their energy control that had defeated Maxis, they would create a tunnel through cruel space itself, a hidden path straight to Prima. Mike, speaking from engineering, was excited by the idea. Like diving under a wave to avoid its force. But Captain, moving that many ships through a hidden energy tunnel, it's never been done before. Humans are good at doing things that have never been done before, James reminded him. Get every adapted crew ready. We leave in 6 hours. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Dr. Maria and her team worked to perfect their energy-hiding techniques. Lisa's medical group prepared for the strain this new form of travel would put on their crews. Mike's engineers modified their ships to handle the unprecedented journey. As their fleet of liberated ships gathered, James broadcast a message to all crews: "What we're about to attempt is dangerous. The Dominion thinks they own cruel space, that only their technology can control it. Today, we prove them wrong. Today, we show them what truly adapted beings can do." The tunnel creation began. Thousands of adapted beings, human and alien alike, worked in harmony. They shaped cruel space energy like water, creating a hidden passage through the very force the Dominion thought they controlled. "Energy tunnel stabilizing," Dr. Maria reported as their fleet began to move. "The Dominion sensors can't detect us. It's working." Their journey through the tunnel was like nothing anyone had experienced. They moved through pure energy, their ships protected by the combined power of their adapted crews. Through their connection to cruel space, they could feel the life forces of countless beings touching their minds, supporting their mission. But as they neared Prima, they felt something else, a deep, pulsing power that made their abilities flicker. "The source," Rex whispered. "It's even stronger than I remembered." They emerged from their energy tunnel at Prima's orbit, behind the Dominion's defensive lines. The capital world glowed with unnatural power, its surface covered in vast energy-collecting machines. And at its center stood a massive tower reaching into space, the housing of the source. The Dominion detected them almost immediately. Alarms blared across their fleet as enemy ships turned to face this unexpected threat. But it was too late, the rebels were already too close. "All ships, battle formations," James ordered. "Primary target is that tower." The space around Prima erupted in chaos. The Dominion fleet scrambled to protect their capital, but their rigid tactics were no match for the fluid, adaptive style of the rebellion. Then they felt it, a deep vibration that shook their very beings. The source was powering up. Energy readings off the scale. Dr. Maria shouted. "They're going to activate it." The tower began to pulse with blinding light. Adapted crews throughout the fleet felt their powers starting to weaken as the source began its work. But James had one final card to play. During their journey through the energy tunnel, every adapted being had connected, forming a network more powerful than anything the Dominion had ever seen. "Everyone, remember what we learned." James broadcast. "Don't fight the energy, become part of it. Let it flow through you, with you." As the source tried to lock away their abilities, the adapted beings did something unexpected. Instead of resisting, they opened themselves completely to cruel space. They became living conduits for its power. The source's energy met this unified consciousness and found not resistance, but acceptance. Like a river finding a new path, the power began to change. "Look!" Lisa called out, pointing to her readings. "The source, it's not just a machine. It's alive. It's been waiting all this time for beings who could truly understand it." The battle for the future of the galaxy had reached its crucial moment. But no one could predict what would happen when the living heart of cruel space met those who had learned to truly embrace its power. The space around Prima blazed with energy as the source's power met the combined consciousness of thousands of adapted beings. Captain James Walker stood on his ship's bridge, feeling the incredible forces flowing through him and every other adapted creature in the fleet. "The source is trying to communicate." Dr. Maria's voice was filled with wonder as she read the incoming data. "It's not just a machine, it's the original heart of cruel space itself." Through their shared connection, every adapted being felt the truth. The source was an ancient living entity, one that had existed long before the Dominion. It had created cruel space as a way to help species evolve, to reach their full potential. But the Dominion had trapped it, using its power to control rather than nurture. "All these years," Rex said in awe, "we thought we were masters of cruel space. But we were just jailers, keeping its true power locked away." The Dominion leaders weren't going to give up their control easily. From the surface of Prima, they activated every weapon they had, trying to sever the connection between the adapted beings and the source. Enemy ships approaching from all sides, Tom reported from his station. "They're throwing everything they have at us." James felt the pressure of the moment. They were so close to true freedom, but one wrong move could still doom them all. "Hold the line," he ordered. "Keep the connection strong." Throughout the fleet, adapted humans and aliens worked together, maintaining their unity. The Dominion's weapons seemed less effective now, as if the very nature of cruel space was changing around them. Lisa's voice came from the medical bay, excited and urgent. "Captain, you need to see these readings. The source isn't just communicating, it's sharing its knowledge with us. I'm seeing the true history of cruel space, how it was meant to work." Through their shared consciousness, everyone saw the vision. Cruel space wasn't meant to be a weapon or a trap, it was supposed to be a nurturing field that helped life evolve. The source had created it as a gift to all living things, a way to help them reach their full potential. The Dominion found it when they were still young, Rex explained, understanding flowing through him. They were the first to discover it, but instead of sharing its gifts, they built their machines to control it. They trapped the source and used its power to rule. High above Prima, the massive tower housing the source began to change. The Dominion's controlling machines were breaking down as the source awakened fully for the first time in millennia. "Warning!" Mike called from engineering. "Power surge coming from the source. It's incredible." A wave of pure energy burst forth from the tower, washing over ships and planets alike. But this wasn't a destructive force, it was a liberation. Everywhere it touched, the artificial barriers created by Dominion technology began to fade, replaced by the source's true power. Through their connection, James spoke to every adapted being in range, "Don't fight it. This is what adaptation was always meant to be. Let it flow through you." The results were amazing. Species that had been trapped under Dominion control for generations felt their natural ability to adapt awakening. The source's energy touched them all, not forcing changes but offering possibilities. On the Dominion ships, crews watched in disbelief as their control systems failed. But instead of being left helpless, they felt new strength flowing through them. The source was offering them the same chance at true adaptation that it offered everyone else. "They're standing down," Tom reported, watching enemy ships power down their weapons. "The Dominion fleet, they're surrendering." But James knew it wasn't really surrender, it was acceptance. The Dominion's leaders had hidden the truth for so long that even they had forgotten it. Now, faced with the reality of what cruel space was meant to be, their empire of control was transforming into something new. Dr. Maria's readings confirmed what they all felt. The source is rewriting the very nature of cruel space throughout the galaxy. It's returning to its original purpose, helping life evolve naturally. The battle was over, but the real changes were just beginning. As the source's power spread, every species it touched began to discover their own unique ways of adapting. Some developed abilities similar to humans, while others found completely new ways to interact with the energy. "Look at Prima," Lisa called out. The capital world was transforming. The massive machines that had controlled cruel space were dissolving, replaced by natural formations that pulsed with the source's living energy. James felt a deep sense of completion. Humanity had done more than just free themselves, they had helped restore balance to the galaxy. The source was free, and with it, the true potential of all living things. Rex, who had watched his empire transform, smiled for the first time since they'd known him. "You humans never cease to amaze me. When we trapped you in cruel space, we thought we were sentencing you to submission. Instead, you showed us all the way to true freedom." The next few days were filled with incredible changes. Throughout Dominion space, adapted beings began working together, learning from each other. The rigid hierarchy of the Empire was replaced by a network of cooperating species, each contributing their unique perspectives and abilities. The Source remained at the heart of it all, no longer trapped but freely sharing its gifts with any who were ready to receive them. Cruel Space was no longer cruel, it had become what it was always meant to be, a cradle for evolution and growth. As James looked out at the transformed galaxy, he thought about how far they'd come. From a single space station defending Earth, they had sparked a revolution that changed the nature of space itself. What happens now? Tom asked, watching the peaceful activity around Prima. James smiled, feeling the endless possibilities through his connection to the Source. Now we all learn what we can really become. Together. The story of humanity's rise from trapped prey to galactic liberators was over, but a new chapter was beginning. In the freed Cruel Space, every species would write their own destiny, adapting and growing in ways the Dominion never imagined possible. It was the dawn of a new age, not of control, but of evolution. And it all started because humans refused to accept the impossible.